Hey everyone, we are finally back with another public update video, and by we, of course, I mean with me as always is Corey. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And let's just dive in. It has been longer than usual. We did record a private backers only update video since our previous public video, but a lot of you guys watching might not have access to that or might not have known that update video existed. So for all of you actual Kickstarter backers, you should have had access to that video. When we send out the email with this Kickstarter update, we'll be linking you not only to this video you're watching right now, but if you scroll down to the bottom, we'll also have a link to our previous video. But getting into the actual update itself, we have been very busy since the previous public update video. We've made a huge amount of improvements, not only bug fixes and finding any kind of instability or things not behaving the way they should, but just as importantly, or maybe more so in the long run, we've been working on a lot of gameplay tweaks. Just to give you an idea of the scope of the work that we've all been doing, there were close to 800 tickets of just things to do. Some of them were as simple as, hey, we made a new sound effect, play this when this happens, or we've updated this graphic with a bit of improvement, so please update that. But a lot of them were much more complicated, and several tickets were themselves a big checklist of things to do. So that's been a monumental amount of work, and as we mentioned in the previous video, it's so great to be working with Simon at NeoFid, the programmer, and just his dedication to just keep plowing through all these tickets and never compromise on quality. But the good news is we are now incredibly close to a gold state. We might actually be there as far as the gameplay. It's just a matter of continuing to test as thoroughly as possible and find any bug or any other kind of instability.
A lot of this newest testing has been kind of longer form testing, like how long can you loop through certain modes of gameplay, and does it all string together correctly? Because some of this is finding any tweaks to challenge, for example. Those would be gameplay tweaks.
Yeah,
more in the scope of the relative entire game experience. We have been able to more clearly identify those specific spots of the game where those tweaks need to be made. It's getting pretty stable now. Like, I haven't noticed a lot of game-breaking things in a while, you know what I'm saying? But there's still little things here and there, but it's getting very close, Yeah,
I think, in fact, one of the very few crashes you ran into in this recent testing round required you to basically play through a long chunk of the game, die, and then restart the game through the menu. Then it crashed. So those are the kind of tricky things that you only find with really thorough stress testing. So that's where we are. Like, we really obviously want to make sure that this game is as rock solid as possible before we have it mass printed onto a bunch of cartridges and sent to the backers. But it's going well, and the game is getting very stable. Even as importantly, for sure, it's getting more and more fun. And while I'm talking, future Mike should have edited in footage of me actually playing hard mode, so we thought it would be interesting for you to see the game when you turn all of the knobs up to 11. But just all along the way, we keep finding they can be very simple tweaks, but just changing a movement speed, a distance, and animation speed can have such a massive difference to gameplay. And one of the tweaks we've made very recently that I did want to point out is Gareth, the sword-wielding character that you can control. He has got a move where you can chain out of your dash move into a forward thrust, like a stab with your sword. And it was definitely overpowered. And I realized one way to help it not be quite so OP, where you could just keep rapid fire stab thrusting through a level, is that there are enemies that should not get killed with one stab, especially the ones with a shield. So we added this feature where if you thrust stab into a character with a shield, they block it. It does damage the shield, but it also makes you recoil back. It bounces Gareth back a bit. And not only did that help alleviate the broken gameplay balance, but it also feels great, and it makes the player have to stay more alert and not try to cheese their way through a level.
Since our last update, that was some of the first things I was doing, was trying to cheese as much as I could through it and see what ways you can exploit. Then it better informs you, like, okay, well, here's what needs to happen or change.
Exactly. And that's like also my brother, shout out to Chris. He's been helping doing a lot of testing as well. And it was really fascinating watch him to start to play DaemonClaw going a couple months back. And even to this day, when he tests, he's like super aggressive and he's always looking for the quickest, cheapest way to like beat an enemy, to look for a pattern that a designer and a programmer might not have thought of and exploit that weakness, and which is extremely valuable. And so on the one hand of being able to dodge your way through the basic enemies of a level, I'm okay with that. And even some of the greatest games in history, you can do that, like speedrunners do that. But of course, the trade-off is your score is going to be terrible and you're not going to power up, you're not going to have your magical abilities by the time you reach the boss fight, or get to enjoy using those magical abilities. So that aspect I'm more okay with, but we want there to be a balance so it's not obvious you can do that and so you can't accidentally do that and just kind of walk your way through a level. That was happening on one level. I won't go into detail, but we had to figure out.
There was a little stretch where you could just hold right and it's like nothing was able to hit you or something.
The enemies, just by the design of the enemy movement and the way the enemies appeared on screen, so long as you kept walking, they would avoid you unintentionally. So like there's always, you got to keep an eye out for things like that, and you don't want those things to kind of accidentally happen or be really easy to discover. But on the other hand, when it comes to boss fights and sub-boss fights, you really want to make sure there's no simple way to cheese them to just beat them really easily. So we've been doing a lot of that too. But the good news is, in almost every circumstance, in almost all of those very many tickets we've tortured poor Simon with, they have benefited the overall gameplay as well, like increased the fun factor. So that's great. Oh, and I should also mention, beyond tweaks, we made a last-minute addition, actually two. I can't mention one of them at all because it would be inherently spoilery because it has to do with the final boss fight. But during that final boss fight, I can say, you know how DaemonClaw and your magic keeps changing for every level? But usually for the boss fight of that level, your magic stays the same as it was for that level. For the final boss fight, we actually introduced a final magical attack. And going back to that topic of gameplay tweaking, we really appreciate those of you backers who volunteered to test the earlier versions and give us feedback, and that is incredibly valuable. And we did make several tweaks based on that feedback. Of course, game designers and developers also have to find that balance between knowing what the vision is for the game you want, and sometimes feedback is not something you can do without it breaking a core aspect of the way you want the game to be that player who hasn't played for a long time doesn't fully get yet. It's not about like the defensive, you just need to get good. But if it's like a critical gameplay thing, a huge chunk of your gameplay is based around this thing, and this change, very often what happens is a player will see a game, like a big risk with DaemonClaw is people see the screenshots and think it's like a Metroidvania or even a platformer, and then they might go, why doesn't it have platforms and why is it so linear? And both of those things, there's no such thing as fixing those, because to do those would make the game very much not DaemonClaw. That's not just making a change to make it better, that's making a change to make it not at all what you were going for.
But you can still, the interesting thing though, the feedback's still valuable because you can find ways to like, okay, well, maybe there's a better way to present the game to people, explain this to people, where the idea that they have is coming from and why they feel that way.
Exactly.
And maybe there is still some way you can address it.
The worst thing for a game developer to do is to get defensive and say like, you need to get better, you don't understand. You need to ask yourself, what did we miss? What did we not do from the intro of the game to into level 1? Why does a player not get the gameplay yet the way we intend it?
Yeah.
Why don't
like that one guy, I think there was one guy that he was averse to doing anything but just normal punching and walking forward or something. It was like, why isn't this guy doing the other moves? Like there's something he not clicked, he missed something.
Absolutely. And it may have been someone that was very much used to that old game Vigilante, where it was very horizontal. You literally walk forward and then occasionally turn around and you punch or kick. And then the game Black Belt, which was the biggest, for those who have been following us a long time, you know this, Black Belt on the Sega Master System was the biggest influence for the gameplay design of DaemonClaw.
Right.
And what they did with that game was really open up the vertical space in the game, where now jumping was not only beneficial but a critical aspect of the gameplay. And one of the testers that gave us very good, very reasoned feedback, that was a complaint of theirs, that you have to jump, there's too much jumping. And that's not something we can fix, because that's an intentional critical aspect. It opens up the whole screen real estate. And a big aspect of DaemonClaw, hopefully you could see so in the gameplay footage, is the non-stop reaction from not only left and right, but from upper left and upper right, really having to constantly be seeing what's happening and what's about to happen, the dangers that are approaching, and plan out in split-second reactions. Okay, I should take care of the enemy behind me first, and then the one in the upper right. And
I think this lends to the fact that basically a lot of platformer games out there, or Metroidvanias, or something like the Castlevania series, you go back through time through all these things. There is an old school tendency where these games would try to keep the mechanics of the main character super simple, right out of the gate at the start of a game, and then they would layer on abilities now you got the extended attack or whatever. Whereas DaemonClaw, we actually did design it with nice moves right out of the gate that you can do. Where it's meant to be the type of game that you want to retry and keep practicing and getting better at to enhance your skills. Our hope and goal is that you should want to go back and retry it as many times as you would like, because the iterative quality of retrying is not too extended. Like, you don't feel like you lost a ton of your time or something. If you die, you're like, oh, that was a waste of 30 minutes, and
what happened, which we discussed before, is probably a couple decades ago, the big marketing push was how long it takes to beat a game was the value. So fast action arcade games all morphed into some kind of thing like a Metroidvania. So what you were saying about the gameplay, suddenly you could start a player in really slow and casual with only a couple of moves, and over the course of many levels have them earn or unlock the new moves and spend a whole level with them learning that new move. Whereas with this is a classic arcade game. It's meant to be played, especially once you're good, in one sitting and enjoy the thing from beginning to end with no filler space, no casual kind of relaxing time playing. It's exciting the whole time. So, but that's part of why we added in that practice mode in the menu, where you can practice without worrying about losing lives. Any level you've already reached, you could practice and get really good at any of the levels, so that when you go into play, for keeps, to really try to earn the full-blown ending of the game, you've had that more stress-free way, or that risk-free way, to just practice the gameplay. But anyway, off of the topic of gameplay design now, and back onto the updates, the printed materials for the Megadrive version, the actual box art has already been printed, and it was really cool to see. The people at NeoFid were already putting that in the Megadrive game case and testing things out, and that looks really cool. I was not able to verify by the time that we're recording this, but either the manual and the trading cards that are included in the Megadrive version either have already been sent to the printer or will be sent very early this coming week. Oh, there was another thing in there that wasn't listed on the Kickstarter that I'm not going to mention, that also either was already sent to the printer or will be soon. And then the last thing is there's a folded poster, which the art has already been finished for a while, but we just yesterday finalized the size it's going to be so that it'll fold properly and fit in the packaging. We're waiting to get a template file from the printer for that size so we can make sure we deliver that exactly the way they need that. So, but anyway, basically all the stuff for print for the Megadrive version is either being printed now or about to be shipped to the printer this same week that this video will be released. I forgot to mention there's an art book which is part of the add-ons or the extras that people could buy in addition to backing the games themselves, and Corey and I have established quite strongly the overall design, but we're making more progress on that, and now we've actually got a schedule where we're regularly making progress on that as well. Okay, and now onto the Neo Geo side of things. A lot of progress continues to be made on the programming side. We did recently make some new screenshots really showing off the nice enhancements Corey has been making all this time for the Neo Geo version. So future Mike will edit those screenshots into the video now. I think you were telling me, Corey, you're about 70% done with all the enhancements to the environments and things like that. And then on my end of things, I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous video, but I've done the static image of the bust of the second playable character. That's been finalized, so now I need to animate that. I have also been making a lot of progress cleaning all of the animations for the second playable character. I don't want to show this second playable character yet. You know how there's the cliche of the fine artists back in the day? They were going to unveil a new painting, but they wouldn't let anyone look at it while it was a work in progress, and there'd be like a silk cloth over it, and they'd rip it off for everyone to see the painting. Yeah. It kind of feels like that with this second playable character for me. I don't want to spoil it until they could just see this character and their moves and their abilities all there the way it belongs.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
There is something about seeing an early part of the process that isn't as satisfying. You want the full impact.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so we hope you will indulge my selfishness keeping this character a secret for now. But trust me, it'll make
it's going to be amazing. So from my end of things,
yeah, I appreciate that.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
so,
that's high praise from such a great game artist and designer yourself. This character, as we mentioned before, the second playable character is unique for every version. So the Megadrive version has Gareth with the sword, and then there's the PC version will have their own character, and the Neo Geo has their own. And we really wanted to make the Neo Geo character put special use to the hardware, really help show off its enormous sprite power and stuff like that. So it takes extra work, but it's worth it. And heck, you Neo Geo backers are shelling out big money for the cartridge version of the game. So we're making sure that you're getting your money worth, or doing everything we can to do so. We hope you'll agree when you see and especially get to play the final Neo Geo version. Speaking of that, Neo Geo exclusive stuff, I did also just yesterday start roughing in. There's going to be, in very classic Neo Geo style, an attract mode that's much more flashy than your usual console or even modern PC platformer or action game, where it's all about getting someone's eye as they're trying to they're walking through the arcade. And so big graphics, big full screen. In fact, these scenes are 2-screen tall or 2-screen high, camera panning, parallaxed, close-up scenes of the kind of introduction to the game story, where they're called the Zverkin, these different humanoid animal creatures are attacking human villages.
Right.
I just started working on that.
Another neat aspect, by the way, just to add to Neo Geo specific and maybe even also PC version discussion, is that the unique character added to Megadrive, which you guys have seen, is from Demons of Astaborg.
Yeah.
So technically not really
canon,
canon for the world of Nar, but the other two characters are.
Great point.
So in the other versions, there will be a little bit of an extra lore and story written and added to the universe based on those characters.
Great point, Corey.
Those versions of the game.
Yeah, in fact, this Neo Geo character that I'm selfishly keeping to myself for now, they tie strongly into the history of one of the other key characters in an interesting way, and I look forward to being able to reveal all that, partly in these videos, but mostly once people can actually play the games. And finally, speaking of the PC version, I haven't been able to touch that much in the last few weeks because we've been really crunching to try to get the Megadrive version wrapped up. But a couple of weeks ago, I was able to make more progress still on the final boss fight on PC, which actually, not only is it good to make progress on the PC version, but it also enabled us to finalize some of the gameplay design decisions for the Megadrive version. But I should be able to get back into development on the PC version very soon.
On a final note, for those who do follow us on social media, X as it's now called, as of 2 or 3 months ago, I think we have crossed 1,000 followers. So
awesome.
I just want to, we just want to thank everybody for following us. It is a neat milestone. I didn't want to say anything about it until it stayed at above 1,000,
right?
Instead of dropping back down. But thank you guys so much for following. And if you haven't followed us there yet, definitely there will be a link in the description to do so. And you can also go to our website, also link in the description, for any of our other social media accounts. So please do so to stay up to date on everything we're doing. Yeah.
Yep. And with that, that's it for this update video. As always, thanks everyone so much for watching and your support. And we'll be back again soon with another video.
If you enjoy our content and want to keep up to date on our games, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, if you want to support our projects, consider becoming a patron. The link's in the description, and we'll see you soon.